How you doing? This is Coach DeCarlo, and we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to delve deep in some scripture, basically so that you can identify who it is that you are. Most of us, myself included, have been raised in a traditional Christian background, so forth, and so that's what we know. And I've been studying scripture probably for about 25 years, and in doing so, I had to later unlearn much of what was taught to me early on. I want to say something that Arthur Schopenhauer said. He said, that truth goes through 3 stages. The first stage of truth is ridicule. After that, it's violently opposed. And then it's considered self-evidence. I'm going to give you some truth today. And some of you are going to violently oppose the truth. Others of you are going to ridicule the truth. And some of you are going to see it simply as self-evidence. This is that red pill, blue pill moment. I kind of got my Morpheus look going on today. The goal is to give you some information that you'll begin to understand who you are. And so when you step into 2024, you'll understand your true identity and you'll be able to operate from a place of power. What I want to do is give you your power back. A lot of times when we're dealing with religious and sometimes even spiritual information, we're often put into a form of mental bondage. And I want you to know that you're creators and you're creating your day morning, noon, and night. From the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, you're creating. So what I want to do is help you become a more conscious creator. And don't take these things simply on what it is that I'm saying. Look at these things and test them for yourself. But let's go in and get into Scripture. Scripture says this, that God said, let us make mankind in our image and in our likeness. And it said that God breathed into the nostrils of man, the human race, and they revived or they lived. And he says that man became a living spirit. So we're going to pause just right there. When we're talking about God, I like to say God is that good that one desires. What is it that you want to manifest in your life? What is it that you want to produce in your life? Everything starts with thought. And like God, we say at the beginning of our day, allow us to create our manifestation after our image and our likeness. Whatever you're producing, Jesus called it fruit. Whatever you're producing in your world of experience, that's your manifestation. So we're always manifesting. Now, if you're not currently happy with 2023 and where your life has been in 2023, then you simply need to begin changing your thoughts and changing your world. Now, some will say, Coach, is it as simple as that? It is and it isn't, because most of us have been preconditioned. And because we've been preconditioned, programmed from the time of infancy into adulthood, we believe that what it is that we've been taught to be true. Now, when we're talking about God, I said God also represents whatever the good that you desire to manifest in your life. God is also known as, he said, let us. When we're talking about us, if you look at that in the Hebrew, you see that they use the word Elohim. Elohim is the one made up of many. So, of course, we talk about the plurality of God. And he says, let us make man in our image, mankind, woman, man, female, made in them, in our image and our likeness. Now, the question is, what is the image and the likeness of God? We're told that Jesus had a conversation with the woman at the well. And he says, listen, you worship God in Samaria, and we do it in Judea, and we do it in Jerusalem and so forth. But the Jews are the true worshipers of God. But those who worship God must worship God in spirit and truth, because God is spirit. So many times when we look at God, we try to create God in our image. We make God, as it were, simply a man, and with all the flaws that men have. But the truth of the matter is we're to be made in God's image. God breathed spirit. And we can know that God has breathed spirit in us because, of course, it says in him we live, we move, we have our existence. If you're watching this talk right now, God's spirit is in you. No matter what you believe. Now, let's get over this for a second. There's those that say God's not real. Nothing more than the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus, whatever. When we talk about God, many of us give God various names, different names and so forth. But we're talking about energy, life force, vitality. Now, many people give that vitality, that energy, that life force many names. Some say Allah, Buddha, Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever. But God is symbolic of that life force that's in each and every one of us. So we call that life force pneuma, or spirit. So as we're operating in God's spirit, God said if he didn't do it, if he, she didn't do it, it wasn't done. What does that mean? Out of the 8 billion people, God is experiencing himself, herself, itself, through each one of those 8 billion people. God is experiencing the world through you and me. So when we say you're God's, and people get into an uproar and say, that's blasphemy, that's demonic, whatever, we're simply saying that you're the offspring of God, which is true. Scripture verifies that, and of course, many of poets and spiritual teachers, as well as metaphysicians and scientists and so forth, they all agree that at least there's something that binds each of us together. Many of us, like I said, we call that energy, we call that life force, whatever you call that. Some call it God. There's a binding of us together. So it's really the one made up of many. So God is experiencing himself as you and as me. But let's go on and talk about the scripture. He says, let us make man, woman in our image and our likeness. So when we begin to create after our image and our likeness, if you see the things around me, when you're looking at the things around you, all of those things started first and foremost as an ideal. Nothing in your world that exists in your world didn't start off as an ideal somewhere, whether it be what we call the source as God or as individuals. Now, the vehicle that God uses primarily in this earth realm is human beings, such as you and me. God requires a vehicle to travel in this earth realm. So because God is spirit, then spirit requires that it has a vehicle of travel. And guys, for those who may want to be in conversation at this time, the future talks, we can do that, but right now I'm just getting the information out, so please bear with me. If you want to leave a comment, I can follow up later on in future talks with those comments, but I'm not taking any dialogue at this point because I really want to get this point across and get each and every one of you to understand who you are as creators. And again, this isn't DeCarlo talking. This is scripture. And of course, many other spiritual books also verify what it is that I'm telling you. Now listen, you don't have to believe this because I'm saying it. Search scripture for yourself. Be like the Bereans and search scripture for yourself. Search your spiritual book, whatever that spiritual book is, whether you, like I said, whether you're looking at the Quran, or if you're looking at some Buddhist literature, some Hindu literature, whatever it is, search your own spiritual books and see if these things are true for you. But my thing isn't to convince you. I'm simply giving information. So it says, in the beginning, God said, in your beginning, because you've been created in the image and the likeness of God, and we've discovered that the image and the likeness of God, God is spirit. And when spirit speaks forth, then of course that speaking forth is life. It gives form. It gives manifestation. So like God, because we've been created in his image and his likeness, we're told to be mindful of your words because, of course, you'll give account for every idle word. Now, That's the idle word. We're not even talking about the normal everyday words that we occupy. It says that we will give an account for every idle word. See, creators, you have to understand it's not the government, it's not whoever's in office, it's not your boss, it's not your spouse, it's not your children. You're creating your world, but you do so by way of your thoughts, your words, your actions, your feelings, your states, your beliefs, your attitudes. All of these things are part of what I said God was earlier, energy. Because energy vibrates at various rates. We begin to attract to us according to the vibration or the energy that we're transmitting. So if you're at a low energy, I was talking to a client recently, and she had made known that she was continuously attracting the same type of relationships. And I said, listen, the only way that you can break that cycle is that you have to get into a different vibration. Now, what does that mean? First and foremost, if you're going into a relationship because you're thinking that that relationship is going to complete you, or you think that you're lacking something, then of course you're going to attract to yourself those type of individuals that will take advantage, as it were, of that low vibration energy. You're going to attract low vibration people. But if you begin to start with, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind." But the key is the last part. We're certainly to love God, so don't take that away. But the key is the last part. You shall love your neighbor, those outside of you, like as, same as yourself. Most of us are looking for love in all the wrong places. So of course, we keep reproducing the same type of relationship. But as we begin to first love ourselves, see, we can't even love God or our neighbor when we don't have a proper self-love for ourselves. Now, in many communities, especially in the traditional church, we're almost told to despise ourselves, but that's not biblical. Even if you look at the mandate of what Jesus said when he was quoting the Old Testament, love your neighbor as yourself. So the notion is, the belief is that you're going to love yourself already. And I like using the analogy of being on an airplane. And I say that, listen, first thing that you, besides buckling up your seatbelts, when they start giving the instructions, they say this: in case of an emergency, oxygen masks will drop down. Please secure your oxygen mask on first before you attempt to put the oxygen mask on your children or those around you. So we're told to first take care of ourselves. So many people are looking for love outside of themselves, but they're not loving themselves. So because they're not loving themselves, the only thing that they're sending out in that vibration, that energy flow, is, I'm not worthy. I'm not lovable. And so when you're sending that type of energy out, what do you think that you're going to attract? You're going to attract people that validate, I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy. And you're going to do that repeatedly until you have a shift or a change in consciousness. Now you say, well, Coach, well, how do I get into a place where I can have a change of consciousness? There's several tools. I like to use an acronym called SAVES. And the SAVE, the S stands for find yourself in a state akin to sleep, in a relaxed state or meditative state akin to sleep. In that relaxed state, the next letter in that S acronym is affirm that I'm loving, I'm worthy of love. Now, people say, well, I don't like affirmations. Creators, you're affirming 70 to 80,000 thoughts, in some cases more. As we're thinking those thoughts, then those thoughts are reproducing. Jesus said that you are given account for every also means every idle thought. If you're giving continuous energy or focus on a negative thought that I'm not worthy, for example, you can affirm, but at the subconscious level, You're holding an energy that says, I'm not worthy. People say, I tried to manifest $1 million and it didn't work for me. You don't just affirm manifesting $1 million. You get into the state of a person that can have $1 million, that a person that has $1 million. Neville Goddard would often say, don't think of, think from. Think from the state. Now, some people say, well, Coach, how do I get into a place where I can think from? He says, become as little children. As children, we did it all the time without even thinking about it. We make believe, we pretend. So when you're in your state akin to sleep, you begin seeing yourself having, doing, being that which you want to have, do, and be. As you begin practicing the exercise in a state akin to sleep, affirming what it is that you want to manifest, that my life is every day and every way, my life is becoming more and more abundant. Whatever your affirmation is, make sure that it's something that you can believe. Don't say that I'm a multi-millionaire when you can't even see yourself making $10,000 a year. Start off that, more money comes to me easily and effortlessly. Say an affirmation or something that you can identify with, something that you believe, that you hold as true. As you begin holding that affirmation as true, so first thing, we get into a state akin to sleep. And again, we're still talking about the SAVE acronym. So you get into a state akin to sleep. Next, you begin to affirm, money comes to me easily and effortlessly. Whatever your affirmation is, love comes to me easily and effortlessly. Now, understand this. When you first start your affirmations, you've been programmed 30, 40, 50 years with your old programming. When you first start using affirmations, you're not going to believe them. You're not going to say, listen, the subconscious is my conscious level. But the more you repeat those affirmations, the more that you begin, now we get into the next stage. So you get into a state akin to sleep, you begin affirming. The next letter in the SAVES acronym is you begin visualizing. Seeing yourself in a loving relationship, seeing yourself doing things with more money, see yourself occupying better health. As you begin doing that over and over, and again, once you start doing this exercise only takes 5 minutes. You can do it longer, but you can do this with anywhere with 5 to 7 minutes where you can begin practicing. See, and understand this. Subconscious mind, they will often say, can't take a joke. If you begin visualizing, you begin affirming, you begin emotionalizing, which is the next step in the SAVES acronym. You begin emotionalizing and getting excited. And whatever excitement means to you, if you're not somebody that kind of jumps off the walls, whatever, then do what's comfortable for you, but get excited about it. What happens is you're reprogramming, rewiring. And if you do this for 30, 45 days, you're going to have a new mind, a new wiring at the end of that 45 days. So first and foremost, when we're talking about the SAVES technique, first you get into a state akin to sleep, in a meditative sleep. And basically, you say, well, Coach, I don't know what that means. A state akin to sleep is when you kind of relax, close your eyes, and kind of allow your eyes to look about upward at your forehead. Just kind of see your eyes inside your closed eyes, upward looking at your forehead. And begin breathing deeply, getting into a relaxed state. So we've gotten ourselves into a relaxed state. What you're doing at this state here, this is what we call an alpha state. So it's the basic state. So at an alpha state, you got beta. Beta is the normal waking state. Then you have an alpha, then you go into theta, and then you go into the various other states. But in an alpha state is when you become receptive. It's that kind of relaxed state before you go to sleep. That's what we call a state akin to sleep. But you're not at a point of sleep yet. Unless you're working with a hypnosis or, hypnotist or something like that, then of course you can still receive. The goal is to bypass the conscious mind. Because when we're in our head, we're like, this stuff is foolishness, it don't work, I've tried it. All that's at the conscious level. When you get out the way and you start visualizing and seeing, so when you get into the state akin to sleep, when you begin affirming, whatever it is that you want to manifest in your life, and you begin visualizing, seeing it as real. Now, when we're talking about visualizing, you visualize from a state of being the actor in the play. There was a movie, and I'm probably going to call it by the wrong name, but I'll try to get close. Hardcore Henry or Hardcore Harry or something like that. But whatever the name of the movie, it was like a video game. You were looking at the movie from this man's eyes, and everything, whether he was getting punched or whatever, you were kind of looking at it as you were the character in that movie. This is how you visualize. You see yourself being happy. Don't look at yourself as being on a movie screen as you're watching a movie. That's second person visualization. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about first person. You see yourself carrying out, buying, driving that new car. When I attracted my first luxury car, the way that happened was Saturn. And in driving the Saturn, I had envisioned that I was going to have this particular model car. And I saw myself driving my ideal car. And likewise with you creators, when you're when you're living in that state, you see yourself being healthy. You see yourself in that loving relationship. You see yourself talking to that partner. You see yourself having more money. And it's really not the having of more money, but what money buys. Money, if it's not being circulated, is dead. But as you see yourself making investments, buying real estate, going shopping, whatever it is that you're doing with money, then you begin occupying from that state. And then, of course, you're going to manifest. Let's get back to the SAVES acronym. First, you get into a state akin to sleep. Secondly, you begin to affirm what it is that you want in that relaxed state. Now, one of the things that you can do, if you don't want to find yourself talking, you can pre-record and put that recording on loop and just let it play while you're in that state akin to sleep. And as you're visualizing, and again, the next letter, so we got S, state akin to sleep. We have A, affirm. We have V, visualize. We have E, emotionalize. Get excited about the thing that you're trying to manifest in your life. See it as already being a reality. The subconscious mind will begin to see it as so and see how it can bring about that thing in your reality. Lastly, you begin to sensationalize. Now, I'm kind of playing on words when I say sensationalize, because really what you're going to be doing is sensing. So you're going to smell, you're going to hear, you're going to taste. You're going to be using all of your senses to experience that new thing. And you're going to find yourself doing that consistently. If you can practice this for 21 to 45 days, more is better. But even if it's a short time, you're going to notice some things that begin to show up and show out in your world, because it can't not. It says, decree a thing and it shall come to pass. It says, be it unto you according to your belief. So whatever it is that you believe, if you say this stuff is rubbish, as somebody continues to say on my YouTube channel, and again, that YouTube channel is Neville Goddard, Next Generation. If you're interested in looking at more videos and teachings and so forth, Neville Goddard, Next Generation. And also, there is a free gift. If you're interested in the free gift, if you click on the link, there's a link under my profile. So there's a free gift that you can go to. It'll take you to a Shopify. So then, of course, there's a paid item, but there's also a free gift out there. If you're interested in the free gift, go out and get the free gift. But getting back to the talk, you're always creating, people say, well, I'm a professional manifester. You're all professional manifestors. The question is, are you happy with what it is that you're manifesting? And so as you're manifesting, you become, my mentor and I, Mr. Lindo will often say, listen, we're not trying to tell you what to think, but what we're trying to do is help you direct your own inner conversation, because depending upon where you're directing your inner conversation is going to determine your manifestation. Jesus said it this way, that you shall know a tree by its fruits. Now you say, well, Coach, what does that got to do with my life? The results of your life is the byproduct of your thoughts. There's no way around it. Now, people want to get nice, or they say, well, no, it's not your fault. And it may not be our fault because of early programming, because we had nothing to do with that. But When you know better, you do better. The goal is to begin to purposely direct your thoughts towards the things that you want to be, do, or have. You begin living from that space. You go back and listen to this and begin, again, using the SAVES acronym. State akin to sleep, that's a relaxed state. We call that the alpha state. Begin to affirm what it is that you want to manifest. And what I suggest when you're doing affirmations, I have a whole process on affirmation, but I'm not going to get into that now. That's a future talk. But when you're doing your affirmations, do one at a time. Don't sit there and get caught up in trying to do 20 affirmations, especially when you're in this and you're trying to manifest something specific. Focus on that thing that you're trying to manifest. Give your attention to that. The problem has been, up until this point, you've been focusing on the opposite. Now, some of you believe that if I focus on this for a few moments, even 45 days, then I'm going to have it. If you're not occupying the state, if you're not living from that desired end, you're not at that vibration. And like I said, initially, it's going to start off at what seems to be make-believe. But as you continue on in the process, it's going to become real to you. I was watching the last Olympics, and this black female was being interviewed by an interviewer, and he says, did you ever see yourself winning the gold medal? And she said, yes. As a matter of fact, I did. This is what athletes, actors, multimillionaires, billionaires, successful people that we see every day, they're doing the rehearsal. They're seeing themselves even before a penny is manifested, even before better health is realized, even before they enter into a loving relationship. They're seeing it as already being so. Now, many of you say, well, Coach, I've tried this and it simply doesn't work. I'll say this. It says that you have not because you ask not, or you ask amiss. It could be that your asking is amiss, and you're really not believing at your subconscious level that you can have the thing that you're asking for. Because whatever it is that we're asking for, when we begin occupying and living from that end, it's just a matter of time before it shows up. And I often use something as simple as a glass of water, because that's how manifestation works. It's as simple as a glass of water. Whether you're talking about more money. Now, I'm going to get on the subject of more money briefly. Many of us think that, if I can just money comes to me easily and effortlessly. Money. You start with the saying, but in the end, you be. Many of us are operating from the opposite flow of being. And what do I mean by that? Many of us are operating from a have, do, be. We say, if I have this, then I'll be happy and I'll do the right things. And we keep trying to work backwards against the flow of the universe. But this is not how the universe works. Now, do people get successful working backwards? Absolutely. Sometimes it's short-lived, sometimes they go their whole life, but they're not enjoying what it is often in the things that they have. And this is why I was talking, sometimes we see these awesome influencers who are changing and transforming the world, or we see these multiple millionaires or billionaires or whomever. And I'm not saying this is all, so please don't write me and say, money don't make people kill themselves. What I'm saying is that these people end up killing themselves, and they discover that having all this stuff still didn't make them happy. That's my only point. Stuff won't make you happy. A person won't ultimately make you happy. Even better health in itself won't ultimately make you. You have to, as I often say, bring happiness to the party. Come from a state of being happy first. Come from a state of being prosperous first. Come from a state of being loving first. If you're walking from a state of love, you're going to attract relationships. You're going to attract people in your life because you're going to be a magnet to money, to help, to relationships. Many of us are operating in our opposite vibration, the things that we don't want, and we're like, I'm miserable and I don't know why this stuff is not working. Well, you just answered your question. It's like somebody said on one of the, I believe it was on TikTok, but I said in one of my posts, I said, God says that Ye are gods, sons and children of the Most High God. And the man got back and said, God didn't say S-H-I-T. For him, it's absolutely true. God didn't say it. He said, and let me end what he also said. He said, God didn't say it. Men, women said it. He's absolutely correct. The vehicle that God uses, understand this, is you and me. So when I say that we're God's, it's because we're God's offspring. We live, we move, we have our existence because of God's Spirit in us. If we give birth to a child, nobody says, that's not a child. Two people just gave birth, a woman gave birth to it and a man was with that woman and they, had sexual intercourse and a child was born. That's not, two people can't bring forth a person, as it were. We all would say that was ludicrous. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. From the beginning of Scripture, we're told, God said, let us create man, woman, male, female, made he, them, in our image and in our likeness. It says that God breathed the breath, and again, whatever you believe about God, it doesn't matter, but the breath that you're breathing currently, if you're listening to this program, you have God's energy, life force in you. I was recently driving and there was this funeral procession. And this funeral procession, because I'm like on a side street, and car after car after car after car was driving by. So it was almost probably over 100 cars going to this funeral. And I thought to myself, one day, that's going to be me. The truth of the matter is, one day it's going to be all of us. 150 years from now, none of us will probably, unless they come up with some type of longevity pill, whatever, most of us will not be here. But I'll say this, even if we're here 150 years from now, 200 years from now, for sure, none of us will be here. At least occupying the same body. My whole point to you is, you're only here currently because infinite intelligence, what I call God, Spirit is in you. And we can know that. Any of us who have gone to a funeral, we notice the difference of that person in the casket or however they have them laid out and when they were with us. And we often say, that's their body, but that's not them, because we see the difference. The difference is God's Spirit is no longer residing in that shell, no more than when we get out of our car or our home, that we're no longer there. The house is empty. It says, Luther had a song way back, a house is not a home when you're not here. When we're not occupying this body, it's nothing more than a vehicle of travel, but it's an empty shell. So if you're occupying this body, you can know that life force, vital energy, Spirit is in you. And because Spirit is in you, that's God's Spirit. And because it is God's Spirit in 8 billion people, each one of us are symbolic or representations of God in the earth. And God says in the book of 1 John, he says, listen, God is, so are we in the world. Again, I think that's 1 John 4:7. So you can look at that. But as God is, so are we in the world. Now, there's so much more. I had a whole bunch of stuff that I want to share with you, but I'll leave some of this for the next talk. And like I said, if there are comments, legitimate comments, I know that sometimes people get into foolishness when they want to comment. That's fine also. I'll just ignore those. But if there are legitimate comments out there pertaining to this particular talk, then I'll discuss those on the next talk that we have. And my goal in talking, they won't all be this long, but I also have to make sure that I qualify for TikTok. In the first 2 talks within a 7-day period, they have to be at least 25 minutes. And as y'all see, I've ran my mouth longer than that. So, and I haven't even touched on all the material that I wanted to discuss. But my goal is not to start some type of religion. My goal is not to tell you what to believe about God. That's yours to believe. But my goal is to tell you that you're thinking, and because you're thinking is creative. Now, that's good, bad, or indifferent. Creators, if you're not living the life that you want to live right now, look at your thoughts. Because, see, that's the fruit of your life. The byproduct is the fruit, what you're seeing in this 3D world, this virtual reality. Spirit is the first cause. You're creative beings, and like God, when God speaks, it's so. When you're speaking and thinking, feeling, and emotionalizing and so forth, you're also creating. If you want to begin to transform that creation, continue to listen. I'll give you some tools. I'll also point you towards some material. But my goal is to help you become a more proficient creator, creating the life that you desire. This is Coach DeCarlo, and I just want to end by saying, remember this, creators, that only you can create your perfect world, not God or man. Only you can create your perfect world. This is Coach DeCarlo. Till we talk next time, have a great and abundant day.